are here live on set at Bush Pig Adventures, and we're here to talk to you about everything to do with tyres. Hi folks, and welcome to this episode of Talking Everything Tyres with General Tyre. I have my experts Lance and Marcus with me, and in this episode we're going to be focusing on the equipment required when you go off-road, when you're venturing off-road on an adventure, 4x4ing, with or without your family, and all the practical tips from Marcus, who's going to take us through the elements relating to equipment to assist you off-road. So Marcus, I think, you know, we're talking about tyres. Sure. And we've spoken about pressures and maintenance and all of the practical implications of those. But of course, you know, tyres and vehicles can only do so much. There are going to be situations where you do get yourself stuck, whether it's situations that you haven't foreseen. Perhaps I've chosen the wrong line. I could be inexperienced.
Sure.
And I think you're going to take us through some of the essentials when you're going off-road to help you get back on track, to get out of that tricky situation.
You know, if you think about any type of driving, be it on-road, off-road, you only have 4 points of contact with the road. Now, how do you manage those points of contact? Is inflation, deflation. So if we have a look at what we've got here, the very first thing any 4x4 should invest in is a very, very good compressor. Depending on the size of your vehicle, your tyre sizes. I drive a very big vehicle, so I have big tyres. So therefore I have a large compressor. This in a Jimny is not necessarily feasible because it is large, it takes up a lot of space. So you can use a lot smaller compressor. So inflation is very, very important because you're moving from different surfaces all the time. Deflation is also just as important, and having the right tyre deflator, or one that is accurate, is also vitally important. So we have two here. This is not necessarily a deflator as such. It does deflate your tyre, but it does it quite slowly. However, it does give you a very, very accurate pressure. I also use a deflator, which is made by ALB, which actually takes your valve core out. Okay. Now you would have seen that in the videos that we did earlier, where we screw the valve core out and it deflates very, very quickly, and also gives you a very, very accurate pressure reading.
That's quite handy.
It's vitally important. And you know, a lot of guys out on the road, oh, I'm not going to deflate because it takes time. All right, it takes a lot longer to recover your vehicle out the bush than it does to deflate a tyre. Reinflating, same story. It's very, very important.
Okay, so we've discussed the pressures. What's next?
Okay, so if we have a problem in the bush, now we've deflated our tyres, or we haven't deflated them enough. We're on the gravel road, we have a nice hard tyre, like a hard balloon. Okay, you take a hard balloon, soft balloon, which is the easiest one to pop? The harder one. Sure. All right, so now we have pierced our tyre. We now need to change tyres. On gravel, no problem, we have a standard bucky, we have our standard jack. Okay, absolutely no problem, we can do that. However, a lot of 4x4 enthusiasts, the first thing they do when they get a 4x4 is what? They raise it. Okay, now a standard little jack doesn't always work because they've put bigger tyres and they've raised their suspension. So depending on your jacking points, you're going to have an issue.
Jack up high enough.
It's not going to get up high enough. Okay, especially if you put bigger tyres on, because that raises your diffs and raises everything else. Normal suspension change doesn't raise your diffs. Okay, it'll raise your front because you've got limited, because you have independent front suspension, but your rear diff is going to stay at the same height. However, when they put the bigger tyres on, that starts raising, as well as your terrain. If I put this jack in soft sand, it's got a very small footprint. So if I start jacking this up on a 2.5, 3 ton vehicle, it's going to disappear. Yeah. I'm never going to get my tyre off the ground. So I always carry an air jack, which you can see the type of height it's going to give. This works off either your exhaust or off the compressor itself. So you can do both in a very controlled environment. So
with a much bigger footprint.
With a much bigger footprint, so therefore you take that circumference in the sand, it's not going to disappear in.
And I'm guessing that you have different air jacks for different weights of vehicles.
Correct. So this is a standard air jack. It's not going to take your maximum amount. You do get ones that go a meter high, depending on the vehicle and the weight. All right. So pick what you need to suit your needs and your vehicle. Space is always at a premium in a vehicle, so make sure you get the right equipment. Make sure you have a wheel spanner. All right. A lot of guys get their vehicles jacked up. They haven't changed a wheel in years, and they find they don't have a wheel spanner in their vehicle. Vitally, vitally important for the basics of 4x4ing. Otherwise, it becomes everybody else's problem. So if you do get stuck, there's a number of ways to get out. There's many ways of skinning the cat. However, if we talk sand to start with, you've bellied out. You've put yourself on the sand. How do you get yourself out? If you don't have a spade, you don't have all that equipment, again, your airbag can push right down flat, slide it in underneath, and you can jack up pretty much any part of the car. Just watch out for your exhaust. You don't want to burn a hole in it.
Sure.
Okay. You do get protective mats and things that go over it, but that is a great way to lift your vehicle back up. You can fill in the holes, and you can use your tracks as well. Put them underneath the vehicle before you lower the airbag down. Now you've lowered them onto a nice hard surface. A great trick to remember though, guys, please always add another little lanyard or a piece of rope onto these tracks here. And if you can, make it long enough so you can tie it to the rear of your car. If you're in Botswana and you're on a long sandy road, you don't want to send your wife walking 2 kilometers back to go and find the tracks. All right? Rather have them follow you behind the vehicle. Otherwise it can be quite comical. But these are a great piece of equipment to get yourself out of the sand. If you deflate your tires correctly in the first place, you should be okay. What a lot of people do is they go, maybe this is all right. Let me try this first. Okay, don't. Always be prepared. Go right down to the recommended pressure for that area from the start. Don't be lazy.
Yeah.
Get down to that 0.8. Get down to the 0.5 so that you can carry on from the beginning to the end. A lot of guys get halfway and go, oops, too late.
Yeah. All right. And then you got to pull out your equipment.
Then you got to start. So your 1 hour trip suddenly becomes 5.
Yeah.
So very important. We've also got snatch straps, various straps that we can use. Your snatch strap, which is elasticity, which uses potential and kinetic energy, which is the best piece of equipment to get yourself out of any situation if there are obviously 2 vehicles. And making sure you have rated bow shackles as opposed to D shackles. The difference being a bow is rated, it actually does have the rating on there, and it is circular as a bow so that it can pull in any direction. A D shackle is for straight lifting. If you take a D shackle and pull it at an angle, you're going to bend this and you will not get your shackle undone. Make sure you have a chock. We don't need the Guards Must Be Crazy movie going on here and you're chasing your vehicle down the hill every time you're trying to change everything. We know what Hilux's handbrakes are like. Okay, so, and I'm allowed to say that because I was a Hilux driver. Guys, it's important to have a chock or some piece of equipment to stop your vehicle rolling if you are changing a tire. Very, very important. If you do have steel rims, if you're doing a long trip, it is advisable to have steel rims so that you can change your tire on a rim. Very difficult to do with an alloy rim because you will damage the rim, you get spurs, you get all sorts of things.
Yeah.
All right, at least with a good old-fashioned steel rim, if you take a tire off the rim or you have a big problem in the middle of Botswana, Namibia, or in a very remote place, you can beat it back together with a 4-pound hammer if you have to. All right, so those are just some of the basics. There are loads more you can get. However, get yourself a compressor, guys. For tires, knowing your pressure, knowing your temperature, get a little TPMS, have a deflator, have a compressor. Vitally important.
And I think it's key, what you said early on, is make sure that you start at the right pressure to forego all the equipment that you need for the what if. You don't want to get to the what if, but it's good to know that you've got this just in case. So valuable advice, and thanks for the tips.
No problem.
Thanks folks for watching this episode, and I hope you found it informative, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.